Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to unpack complex topics and really pull out the key nuggets for you. Today, we're diving into, well, the fascinating and maybe bewildering world of Elon Musk's political moves, specifically his new America Party. We've gathered quite a range of sources, historical stuff on free speech, deep dives into campaign finance, market impacts, all to try and understand what this political wildcard actually means.
It really is a complex situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got history, modern politics, and then just the unique factor of someone like Musk. So our mission today really is to cut through some of that noise. We want to understand where this political pivot came from, look at the history of third parties here in the U.S., and explore the ripple effects, politics, the markets, all of it. It's fascinating how fast things can change, even for these big players.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that journey. It's been quite a ride, hasn't it? From calling himself a free speech absolutist to now architecting a whole new party. Our sources really take us back to that moment after his $44 billion offer for Twitter. Remember, free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy. He said he wanted Twitter to be the digital town square for debating humanity's future. But, that raises a big question. The First Amendment stops the government limiting speech, sure. But should private companies, like Twitter, well, X now, should they also protect it? What do the sources say about that tension?
That's a really core question, and it echoes debates going way back. You look at James Madison, right? Often called the father of the Constitution. He firmly believed free speech was essential for self-government. He said back in 1791, public opinion sets bounds to every government and is the real sovereign in every free one. His point was basically if governments restrict speech, they prevent real popular rule, even if, some people misuse that freedom. And he saw this tested early on with things like the Alien and Sedition Acts in 1798. Those acts really clamped down on government criticism, allowed deportations. Madison strongly opposed them, saw them as undermining the whole idea of a free republic.
Okay, so with that historical context, what does this all mean for Musk now? Our sources show this really significant shift in his political alignment. I mean, just months ago, he was Trump's biggest donor, President-elect Trump, $277 million in the 2024 cycle. That made him the single largest individual donor to either party. He even had that role, didn't he? Leading the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, advising on cutting $500 billion in spending.
And what's really striking is how sudden and how public that alliance fell apart. The sources pinpoint the breaking point as Trump's one big, beautiful bill, Musk called it. What was it? A disgusting abomination. Yeah.
Yeah, because of the estimated $5 trillion it added to the deficit. So this clash, this ideological fight over fiscal policy, that seems to be the main driver behind launching the America Party. It just shows how quickly these seemingly solid political partnerships can just fracture over core beliefs.
Right. So then July 5th, he announces the America Party on X, the goal to actually represent the 80% in the middle. His mission statement essentially is give you back your freedom by fighting fiscal excess. And they're looking ahead, aiming for the 2026 congressional races, hoping to be a key swing vote in what's likely to be a very divided Congress. The reports even say he's pledged to fund primary challenges against Republicans who backed Trump's bill. That's pretty ambitious. Oh, definitely ambitious. And if you look at the bigger picture, it's a bold move, sure, but the hurdles, they're immense. Legal hurdles, logistical ones. I mean, as of June 2025, the party's still not registered with the FEC. And some filings apparently used, like suspicious throwaway email addresses. That doesn't look great. Then you have the state requirements. California, for instance, you need 75,000 registered members or 1.1 million signatures just to get on the ballot. Legal experts we looked at estimate building a viable third party could take years and cost hundreds of millions.
And then there's his public image, which the sources really highlight as interesting. Critics see him as polarizing, right? Easily distracted,
Right.
inconsistent. Some even use the term spoiled man-child. Yeah, so even with all the money and allies like Andrew Yang or Mark Cuban, that image might actually push away the very moderate voters he says he wants to attract. How do you see that playing out?
That's a really critical point, yeah. Because historically, third parties in the U.S., they face such an uphill battle. Public perception is just huge. The American system, it's often called a graveyard of outsiders, It's winner take all for president, for Congress. And that tends to really lock in two-party dominance, leads to what political scientists call Duverger's law. Basically, voting for a minor party can feel like you're splitting the vote, helping the major party you like least. That's the spoiler effect. It's a powerful deterrent.
And we've seen that story play out so many times, haven't we? Like Theodore Roosevelt, the Bull Moose Party in 1912, he got 27% of the vote, which is like the most ever for a third party. But it split the Republican vote, helped Woodrow Wilson win. Then there's LaFlette in 24, hurt the Democrats. George Wallace in 68 won 5 states, got over 13% of the vote. Ross Perot in 92, 19% popular vote, 0 electoral votes. Though his focus on the budget did make the main parties talk about it. And
Yeah.
maybe the most famous, Ralph Nader, 2000, Green Party. People still argue he took just enough votes in Florida to swing the election to George W. Bush.
Exactly. All these examples, they really underscore the huge barriers. It's not just the voting system. You've got restrictive ballot access laws, state by state, debate rules you often need, like 15% in polls just to get on the stage. And then there's the way the major parties tend to just absorb popular third-party ideas to steal their thunder, basically, to keep their voters. The whole system kind of resists newcomers.
So, with all that stacked against him,
Yeah.
where does this leave the America Party? Does Musk have some kind of X factor that could let him defy history? What jumped out from the articles we reviewed is this idea that he has 2 weapons no other third-party leader really had at the same time. One, basically limitless money. In 2024 alone, nearly $300 million spent. That's more than Perot, even adjusted for inflation. That kind of cash could fund national petition drives, recruit candidates, just flood swing states with ads. It's a financial power, unlike anything we've seen in this context.
It really is. But let's dig into how that fundamentally changes things. It's not just the money, right? It's his ownership of X.
Yeah.
Twitter, 500 million monthly users, plus his personal following, over 210 million people. That gives him this incredible unmatched ability to amplify messages or censor them or just bury conversations he doesn't like. Think about it. Perot had paid infomercials, relied on newspapers. Musk can just bypass all the traditional gatekeepers. He can create this direct line, this feedback loop with voters. That's completely unprecedented for an individual starting a party. It's not just advertising anymore. It's shaping the narrative on a massive scale. If politics is, as some sources put it, narrative warfare, well, Musk owns a huge chunk of the battlefield now. That's the difference.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. What about the implications? Especially for, say, investors, the tech world. The reports we saw indicate this focus on fiscal conservatism from the America Party. It could actually clash with Musk's own companies, like Tesla. If his party prioritizes deficit reduction over green subsidies, that could threaten federal tax credits for EV buyers, right? And apparently Tesla sales did dip 13% in early 2025. That raises questions about whether demand can keep up without those incentives. Seems like a potential conflict.
That definitely raises a key question. Will these political ventures become a major distraction from his actual businesses? He's famous for juggling a lot, obviously. But critics, they suggest his board members might start pushing him to refocus on running the companies. But on the other hand, you could argue the America Party's platform pro-tech, pro-natalist, which means policies encouraging more births, and the free speech angle that could actually create tailwinds for some industries. Think about AI-driven military tech. Maybe defense contractors could benefit. Or maybe his party pushes for minimal AI regulation, which would help companies like OpenAI, which he co-founded. So it's not necessarily all negative for his business world.
But the risks are definitely there. Big risks. Trump's already threatened to pull government contracts from Musk's firms, like SpaceX's Starlink contract with the Pentagon that's $428 million. The analysis highlights that losing contracts like that could seriously hit SpaceX's valuation. It's a high-stakes game he's playing.
Absolutely. And another key thing to think about here is, who is Musk's actual political base? When you look at the data, the sources suggest that, quote, beyond the tech world, it's not clear that Musk has a broader constituency. I mean, sure, his online following is huge, massive, but it might be kind of shallow, politically speaking. Owning a Tesla or being a SpaceX fan doesn't automatically mean you agree with his fiscal conservatism or his other political views. And the FAG base. Reports say they're still fiercely loyal to Trump. Plus, Musk has had political failures before, right? Like spending big on that losing conservative candidate in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. It suggests money alone isn't enough to win. And his personal brand has become much more partisan lately. That could be alienating potential supporters in some markets, too.
So, okay, putting all these pieces together, what's the bottom line for the American Party? The general consensus from the analyses seems to be, well, it's unlikely to actually dethrone Trump directly, but it could act like a bull moose redux, siphoning off enough Republican votes to potentially help Democrats win tight races. Even just a 3 to 5% split in the right places, that could be enough to flip the House in 2026, or maybe even the presidency in 2028 if the races are super close.
Right. And what's really fascinating is the potential long game here. Musk is 53. decades younger than Trump. Some analysts speculate, maybe his goal is just to outlast Trump, to position himself to eventually inherit a kind of disillusioned conservative base that's looking for a new anti-establishment figure. But there's still that huge barrier. He can't run for president himself. He wasn't born in the U.S., so he'd need a surrogate, a front person. Some sources call it a puppet candidate, someone with charisma, loyalty, maybe some moral flexibility. Finding that person, the articles suggest it's as improbable as landing a rocket booster upright on a floating barge. But then again, Musk did achieve that with SpaceX, didn't he? He does have a track record of pulling off the improbable.
Yeah. This whole deep dive into the America Party, it really feels like a high-stakes experiment, applying these tech-driven tactics to, well, democracy itself. And it's just a powerful reminder, isn't it, politics? Like, it isn't rocket science. It plays by very different rules. Human rules of loyalty, prejudice, memory, fear.
Exactly. So the question really for you listening is not just whether Musk's gamble pays off in the short term. It's more about how this intersection, this collision of immense wealth, huge technological influence, and raw political ambition, how's that going to reshape governance itself in the long run? What kind of political innovation or maybe disruption do you think is actually needed? And how might something like that even emerge? Something to think about.